This will help the roots grow, and basically you won't see any change in an orchid. I've had this orchid 2 months now, and this is the first time that you can actually see change. The leaf is growing and everything like that. It takes them a really long time to bounce back, so don't expect anything immediately. And it also depends on the type of orchid. Paphiopedilum, super slow growers, so they are going to take a little bit longer, but they do appreciate the care. So basically this one I care exactly the same. I don't let it totally dry out. Paphiopedilums do not like to dry out. So I do keep the bark moist. I probably water this twice a week because my environment is so dry. And I spray the moss probably 2 or 3 times a week as well to keep it moist, to create that humidity for this particular orchid. Then moving on, now this is the Dendrobium Comet King Akatsuki. It's been in a lot of my videos. Again, it came just as is. It did have roots, but a lot of the roots were dead and some weren't dead but on their way out. So what I did is I kept the roots. Now the reason I did this is that you sometimes do get roots that look dead, but they can still absorb water. And what I noticed about this plant is that its cane, this main cane, hadn't shriveled, which meant that it was pulling water somehow. And its other cane hadn't totally shriveled either, so it wasn't totally just pulling all its nutrients from this cane. So I kept the roots. You can see some of them in the pot there. And I potted it up. It was in the same potting medium without any sphagnum moss, but I just realized with my climate I needed sphagnum moss because it was drying out too quickly. They don't mind drying out for a couple of days, but I don't let it stand bone dry for more than 2 days, I would say. But as you can see, I've had it for the same time period as the Paphiopedilum, and we have a lot more growth. So we have its new growth here. This is a keiki that it's putting out of one of its out of one of its eyes, basically, on the cane. And then inside the pot, if I can show you, oh, there it is on the other side. Let's see if we can see in here. Sorry guys, do you see it? There we go, just underneath the bamboo there's another growth. Also, when I unpotted it to repot it, it is putting out new roots. So this guy is doing really well. So dendrobiums tend to, this is a dendrobium, this is like the nobile type, so it has a winter rest. It loses all its leaves except this one, but it's doing really well. So I'm really happy with it. I think it's had a bit of a tough go, but they bounce back. So any orchid with a bit of care just bounces back. Like I said, your main point is to try and keep the base of the plant humid so that it can create new roots and start bouncing back. And once they're settled and they're stable, it takes a couple of months, but they will bounce back. Then lastly here we have the Dendrobium, listen to me, the Burrageara Francine. Now this orchid came with a flower spike, which I cut off. There is the old flower spike in there. Now this had this pseudobulb, which was obviously its first pseudobulb. As you can see, it's really wrinkled and thin. So this orchid immediately screamed to me that it had issues with its roots. Again, its new pseudobulb, also wrinkled and thin. So again, this orchid actually likes to dry out between waterings, and it likes the colder environment, so it suits my environment really well. And within probably a couple of weeks of just being potted up in some bark and sphagnum moss and being kept, I do, again with this orchid, because it had no roots, I do keep the top layer moist, even though this orchid does like to dry out, but it's important for root growth. But within a couple of weeks it started producing this new growth here. It grows extremely slowly, don't get me wrong, but it did immediately reward me, I would say, for giving it a chance to grow. So it then started putting out this new growth here. So as you can see, for the different orchids, they have different ideas of what they would like to do as soon as they start growing. For the dendrobiums and for the Burrageara, its immediate response is to reproduce, put out a new growth, another growth right there for it to grow a second pseudobulb. This one as well is putting out the new cane at the bottom. This one is putting out 2 new babies because they want to live, they want to regenerate. But then you have the Paphiopedilums. You have the Paphiopedilums that go for leaf growth and root growth. But your care for these orchids, guys, is exactly the same. When you are just promoting new growth, you don't really have to care per orchid. Your main objective is to create humidity, which you do with sphagnum moss, a little bit of moisture in the sphagnum moss, and just caring for the orchid in general, not leaving it to die, not overwatering, but just making sure that the orchid's basic care needs are met. Anyway, guys, excuse my daughter screaming in the video there at the end. She is enjoying herself playing there. If you have any questions, let me know. But as you can see, these basic care tips will eventually result in your orchids rewarding you with some growth. And from there, once they grow, like in this situation, once the roots grow out, then you can pot it up into a similar situation as this dendrobium, and it'll carry on growing. Anyway, guys, please subscribe to my channel if you liked the video. If you didn't like it, let me know why. I do like to know why. And look out for the next one. Thanks, guys.